It's time!
What is kicking, everybody? It's Tom for Pick and Fights here on a special edition of Pick and Fights. I want to talk to you about something that's breaking news at this moment. Our main event for UFC Fight Night, I guess it's Vegas 63, not even sure what to call it at this point, but the first UFC card in 2023 has a change up on the main event. Kelvin Gastelum out with a mouth issue. Replacing him is the one, the only Sean Strickland, and he's breathing new life into this UFC Fight Night that we otherwise may not have had. Before I do that, let me try to plug in my laptop so it doesn't die on me and I have to pull a change order like the UFC had to do. Hey, listen, so Kelvin Gastelum has, I don't want to call it a boring fight style, but he hasn't been in that many exciting fights as of late. Having Kelvin Gastelum out, which is not something that is infrequent on the part of Kelvin Gastelum. Oftentimes when fights are made, we find ourselves finding a new opponent, either for Kelvin Gastelum or in place of Kelvin Gastelum. Nassourdine Imavov, Kelvin Gastelum, I was a little bit concerned about coming into it because both guys have similar styles. They use their jab. They're not particularly aggressive. Joaquin Buckley was probably more the aggressor, definitely more the aggressor in the third round. He landed a couple good knees and a couple good overhands that Imavov was just too gassed out to contend with. So now coming in and dealing with Sean Strickland, who's not going to have a reach disadvantage, and I can actually pull up the Tapology page because Tapology is on it. Just like I am. Tapology is on it. And if we look at the Tapology page here, we're going to see, actually, Sean Strickland is going to have a reach advantage in this fight, where Nassourdine Imavov was previously going to have the reach advantage over Kelvin Gastelum of about 4.5 inches, 3.5 inches. Sean Strickland's going to have the reach advantage here. He's going to come with a very plodding forward, maniacal style of boxing where he mixes in a couple leg kicks there. Nassourdine Imavov, his finishes lately have been where he's hurt the guy, got them to the ground, and then finished them on the ground. You think of Edmund Shabazian, where he was having all of his success on the feet, finally got Edmund down, showed his superior grappling technique, got Edmund Shabazian into a crucifix and finished him there with elbows. I don't think that's going to happen for Sean Strickland. I don't see Sean Strickland getting out-grappled on the ground in such strong fashion as Edmund did after getting beat up. Sean Strickland has been a guy who historically can take a decent amount of damage, but actually ends up not. He doesn't guard his face too well, as we saw where Alex Pereira and his left hand sat him down, and I think he probably ate a right and maybe another left on the way down. Outside of that isolated situation, a fight between Sean Strickland and Alex Pereira, he doesn't typically get hit all of that much, and when he does get hit, he doesn't let it show, and he keeps plodding forward maniacally, throwing out that jab, very light punches. In fact, I was watching him versus Cannonier, and who else was I just watching him fight? I think it was his win over Brendan Allen, in which case, even a couple of the shots that dropped him, he's just throwing like arm shots. And I don't know if it was Paul Felder. I think it was Paul Felder who actually mentioned it, that when Sean fights, he doesn't throw his body into it, but he just kind of he pitter patter, and then hits hard with the two. So it's possible that he can catch Nassourdine, not necessarily looking for it. But I just think when you think about the style of fight that Imavov is now going to have to convert to, it's not all that different. It's just a very similar opponent who's a little bit taller and uses their grappling less. So for Nassourdine Imavov, not too big of a change. He's already been on a fight camp. He's been training for, the 4, 5, 6 weeks that's led up to it. And Sean Strickland 4, 5, 6 weeks ago was fighting Jared Cannonier. So I'm not going to say there's lingering effects from that. It wasn't like that was a super vicious fight. Gotta love the grind of Strickland, getting back on it, getting back out there. He's on a 2-fight slide here. So, obviously getting knocked out viciously by Potan, and then now coming back and going back, fighting a 5-round war with Jared Cannonier, which was pretty lackadaisical, to just be honest with you. And then now stepping in on short notice against Nassourdine Imavov. I think this is by far the most winnable fight that Sean has fought in the last 6-7 months. I think this one is almost positively going to go to decision. Imavov, known for finishing guys, but once they get on the ground and he's able to capitalize on some previous damage he put out throughout the fight. So with that being said, I think Sean Strickland is well positioned here, but there's a lot more question marks with him. Coming in, he's going to be fighting a guy who is longer, who's rangier, who doesn't have a lot of power in his hands, so to speak. But I think we're ultimately going to end up seeing just another carbon copy of a Sean Strickland fight that we're really not that thrilled with. The first 1, 2, 3 rounds of a 5 round are probably not going to be that entertaining. You're going to have Sean walking him down, Nassourdine Imavov moving left to right, circling off of him, landing a kick here and there. Sean's going to be throwing out his jab. Imavov's going to be countering with another, with maybe a 2, or probably work the body a little bit. Sean Strickland having the low hands is probably going to be able to guard that. I think you're going to see Sean Strickland winning a lot of the ring generalship, which is something that they count in boxing. And I'm not sure how much they count it in the UFC at this point. So I think there's just a few more paths to victory for Imavov. So I'm going to be keeping with him. He's on a streak. Strickland's on a skid, although I don't like to look into that too much because each fight is its own thing. So I just think looking stylistically, these guys are very similar. Neither one of them has a large abundance of power. Neither one of them has a ton of volume. I think Sean Strickland, if anyone's going to have more volume, it might be Sean Strickland because of his willingness to throw out those jabs there. But it's really hard to discern if the judges are going to count the volume of strikes thrown by Sean Strickland, or are they going to count maybe more power shots that landed by Nassourdine Imavov? And then also looking at Imavov in his last fight against Joaquin Buckley, in the 3rd round, Imavov really got it taken to him. Now, I know one of the judges had it as a 30-27, meaning that Joaquin Buckley lost all 3 rounds, but the output and the power shots, especially the big knee in the middle of the round that was landed on Nassourdine Imavov, gives me some concerns and question marks about his stamina, his longevity, and his skill set moving into the 3rd, the 4th, and the 5th round. I don't think we've seen Nassourdine in a 5-round fight up until this point inside of the UFC. He's got the finish over Ian Heinisch. He's got the finish over Edmund Shabazian. And then, Joaquin Buckley obviously went to a decision over 3 rounds. With all that being said, you have the more 5-round experience in Sean Strickland, but he is stepping in on short notice. He had just fought 4 weeks ago. He may have some lingering damage, although that I'm not too concerned with. You have Imavov, who doesn't fight all that regularly. He's going to be the younger fighter by far, more to learn. A little bit of a bigger guy is standing at 6'3", to Sean Strickland 6'1". The other monkey wrench in all of this is the fact that this is going to now be fought at 205 pounds, so that Sean doesn't have to cut down to 85. But honestly, looking at his physique, you wouldn't think he cuts that much weight. So the 6'3" guy, Nassourdine Imavov, he's already begun his weight cut. Maybe he can, slow up on that, and you get a really improved version of Imavov that we see at 205. I just think there's more things that are persuading me to the side of Nassourdine Imavov to get it done here than Sean Strickland. Like I said, short notice fight for Sean, coming off of a loss against Jared Cannonier where he went all 5 rounds. I'm not seeing a whole lot of upside for him. I think it's a great opportunity for him to potentially get off the schneid. And if you want to make a safe bet, I don't see either of these guys finishing each other. So I would definitely take the fight to go to the distance. I would feel a little bit more comfortable putting my money on Nassourdine Imavov, as I have something in my mouth. I would feel a little bit more comfortable at this point putting my money on Nassourdine Imavov, not Sean Strickland, although this really is a toss-em up or a pick-em fight. If we can just pull up best fight odds right here, let's see what they have this fight at. We don't have any odds for it right now. Sean Strickland opened according to I don't even know what line this is according to ref. I'm not that well versed in best fight odds to know right at the top of the right up top of mine, but Imavov opened minus 170 and has went all the way up to plus 100. Sean Strickland started as plus 145 down to minus 120. So I'm happy to hop on Nassourdine Imavov at plus money here, being the guy who's been preparing for a 5-round fight. And the fighter is not that different. He's just a little bit taller and has a little bit longer of a reach. He doesn't have to contend with a large grappling game. Not that he would necessarily be concerned. Sean Strickland has some grappling acumen. We hear a lot about it, but we don't see it in the fights. I don't think Nassourdine Imavov is going to be too concerned, especially being the bigger guy and being up a weight class. I think really what he's got to be concerned with is the accumulation of volume and strikes that's going to come from Sean Strickland. Is Sean Strickland going to be the same Sean Strickland that we're typically used to seeing, especially over 5 rounds coming in on short notice? You got to imagine he's probably in somewhat of shape, but then maybe after the loss to Jared Cannonier, he went out. He enjoyed Thanksgiving. He enjoyed Christmas. Actually, when was this fight? 3 weeks and 2 days ago. So definitely enjoyed Christmas, probably enjoyed New Year. 3 weeks ago, I probably, okay, so he was in camp for Thanksgiving. So that's not an opportunity for him to have maybe gotten a little bit out of, out of his fight ready feeling, fight ready body, fight ready mentality. That's not all happening for Thanksgiving, but it may have happened for Christmas. You know, we saw videos of Sean Strickland and his girlfriend doing this and doing that. So, you know, who knows what type of Sean Strickland we're going to see. He's going to show up and he's going to fight. He's going to be a dog. He's going to go out there and you know, try to put on a show, but I'm just not convinced. Every time that Sean Strickland has went out and said that he's going to put on a show and he wants to do right by the fans and he wants to do this and he wants to do that. I mean, listen, he goes out there, has the same fight. I'm thinking about the Jack Hermanson fight, goes out, it's largely boring. Jack Hermanson's moving around the cage. Sean Strickland was chasing him down the entire time. He yelled at him, you know, stand and fight, or whatever he yelled at, you know, craziness. I think the bottom line is no matter how much Sean maybe wants to go out there and put on a vicious KO performance, I don't know if he's got the tools to get it done. He needs the accumulation of strikes and to land a big 1-2 like he did on Brendan Allen. And I don't think he's going to have the opportunity over 5 rounds to land that on Nassourdine Imavov, a guy who's been training for a 5-round fight and hasn't traditionally had cardio issues in the past outside of the gasser against Joaquin Buckley. But, you know, it's not even like we have a full information on Nassourdine Imavov. This is going to be his first 5-round fight. Granted, he was preparing for it, but who knows how he's going to look and how he's going to react, how long the longevity of Nassourdine Imavov is going to be over the course of the fight. So with all that being said, and I know I say that a lot, but I think even though Sean Strickland is coming in on short notice, he traditionally starts a little bit slower, and anytime he's going to pick up in the fight, it is later on once that accumulation of damage has started. So for that reason, I still want to take the fight as Sean Strickland later on, 3, 4, 5 probably is where he starts to turn it on a little bit more, because Nassourdine is not used to a 5-round fight. He's coming in with a new opponent. But then again, there's parts of me that want to bet on Imavov being the victor as the fight goes on, because he's the one who's been in a fight camp. And he's been the one who's been prepared for it. Ultimately, I'm going to rely on experience in Sean Strickland. He's a crazy guy. I haven't checked his Instagram or Twitter. I don't even know which of those social media platforms he has access to at this point. Haven't checked it lately to know what his cardio, and I haven't been keeping up with him because he hasn't had a fight booked. He just fought. He kind of fell to the bottom of that Rolodex of fighters that you're keeping tabs on. I'm going to go with Nassourdine Imavov. He's been training. Yes, Sean Strickland has the experience, and I think that'll help him later on in the fight, but he may not have the cardio that he typically would want to have or typically have coming into a fight. But then, you know, we also have seen fighters who just turned it on and showed up. Not too many, though. So I'm going to go with the guy who had been preparing for a fighter very similar to Sean Strickland, just a little bit shorter, and has a very similar fighting style, been preparing for that fighting style, been preparing for 5 rounds, been preparing for, you know, January. What's the date that they're going to fight? Is it the 13th? Is the 14th? January 14th, been preparing for that as their fight day and their fight camp, and everything has gone into it. And also Nassourdine Imavov, coming in, you know, he's number 13 in the world, 12-3. He's really got a high propensity to want to get to the top of the division, and getting a win over a guy like Sean Strickland absolutely does that for him, especially more than a guy winning over a guy like Kelvin Gastelum, who at this point has been, I want to call him somewhat of a gatekeeper, but he's really not even that. So I think a win over Sean Strickland gets Imavov where he wants to go. A win for Sean Strickland at this point doesn't put him in title contention. I don't know how he's going to get into title contention when you have all of the people, the typical players up there. You have Potan now, who's the champion at 85, and he's looking on taking on Izzy Adesanya. There's no reason he's going to take on Strickland after easily, you know, piecing him up in the first round and sending him into the twilight zone. So I don't think Sean Strickland's in contention there. I think Izzy has his way with Sean Strickland in a lot of different ways. I don't think Sean Strickland's be able to get in on him. Robert Whittaker has a grappling advantage, and I think that might actually be the best fight for Sean Strickland, would be a Robert Whittaker, but I think Robert Whittaker still wins that one pretty easily as well. So I don't think Sean Strickland has the future at the top of the UFC division and contending for a belt that maybe he would like, and certainly doesn't have the optimism that maybe Nassourdine Imavov would have. And so I think that's going to push Nassourdine Imavov a little bit over to the edge, and I would feel a little bit more comfortable betting on him than I would on Strickland, taking it on short notice. But like I said, I think the best bet here is going to be the fight goes to the distance. I don't even know what that prop looks like, but I did see Imavov's open as the favorite, and now as we're hard to say closing, but as the fight gets a little closer, and by a little closer, I mean an hour and a half, he's moved to being the plus 100 underdog. It's going to be a pick'em fight. I think it's going to be a pick'em fight all the way up until the fight starts. But hopefully, and the best news to come out of all of this, hopefully we get to see a Sean Strickland pay-per-view, not pay-per-view, a Sean Strickland pre-fight press conference. Hopefully, Imavov was a guy who was jawing back and forth with Yoka and Buckley, so maybe he'll jaw back and forth with Sean Strickland. Maybe we'll get some magic in some sort of interview form, and then maybe get that hypes us up. Go out there, both these guys put on a great fight, but I'm gonna have to go. This one goes the distance. So appreciate anyone who tuned in. Appreciate you for stopping by and hanging out with me. It's Monday. Typically we don't put our videos out this day, but when crazy news happens, I'm going to make it a point in 2023 to try and come on here and try and break it and try and give you what my thoughts on it are. If you haven't watched our UFC fight night, Imavov versus Strickland, I suggest you go do that. It should be in a playlist, picking winners on YouTube. Go there, subscribe, like, comment, subscribe, like this video, comment on what you want to see us talk about. If you have any thoughts, are you going for Imavov or are you going for Strickland? What are your thoughts on Strickland coming in on short notice? Is that going to help him or is that going to hurt him? And the changeup of opponent, I know Strickland fights very similarly to Kelvin Gastelum. How is that going to affect everything? Leave us a comment. We want to know. We want to hear from you. If you haven't already, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram. That's where you'll be able to get all the content that we maybe drop last minute. So make sure you watch our video for this week, UFC Fight Night, Imavov Gastelum, Imavov versus Strickland. I don't even know. We may change the name. We may not. I don't even know what the UFC is calling these nowadays. Is it UFC Vegas 63? Is it UFC Vegas Fight Night? Who knows? Who could keep track of it? We got a great pay-per-view next week, so stay tuned for that. We have individual breakouts of all of the different fights. So if you're just interested in one, you go boom. Say you just want to figure out what Dan Ige is going to do this weekend, you can go watch the Dan Ige video in its isolation, and then we also have the breakdowns at the end. I'm rambling now, but regardless, I'm super excited for Sean Strickland to come in on short notice. It's only going to build his mystique, and regardless, I'm just happy to have the UFC back. So with that said, thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you next week.